To answer this first question, you need to know something about how we calculate leap years. Now, in a nutshell, it comes down to the following. The year itself, that whole number, all 4 digits, need to be divisible by 4, then it is a leap year. If it isn't divisible by 4, it's not a leap year at all. But if it is divisible by 4, but it can also be divided by 100, then it is not a leap year. Unless there's a third condition, that year can also be divided by 400. So remember, we need to check the first 2, and if the second one holds, then we need to go to the third one. So looking then at the first year there, 1898, we can do a quick short division calculation to determine whether it is divisible by 4. So 4 can go into 18 4 times, that takes us up to 16, which leaves us with 2. So we put the 2 there, that gives us 29. 4 can go into 29 a total of 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28, which leaves us with 1. But then we've got 18 over there, and 4 cannot go into 18, which means that is not a leap year at all. It's not divisible by 4. Then looking at the next one, 1921, let's try the same thing. 4 can go into 19 a total of 4 times. That leaves us with 3. Put the 3 there, and we've got 32. So 4 can go into 32 8 times, but then 4 cannot go into 1 either. So that is not a leap year. 1987, 4 can go into 19, a total of 4 times. 16, so all the way up to 19 is another 3. That gives us 38. 4 can go into 38 9 times. That takes us up to 36. And then from 36 to 38 leaves us with 2. But 4 cannot go into 27. Can go into 28, but not 27. So 1987 wasn't a leap year either. Then we look at the year 2000, and we say 4 can go into 25 times, and then 0, 0. So yes, 4 can go into 2000, a total of 500 times. So then 2000 is a leap year. However, 4000 can also be divided by 100. That will give us 20, which means it is divisible by 4, but it is also divisible by 100. So is this a leap year or isn't this a leap year? Because we've got the 2 excluding conditions. So we now need to jump to the third one, which is, can 2000 also be divided by 400? And in this case, yes, it can. It can be divided by 400 5 times, which means 2000, the year 2000 was a leap year. But if we look, just to deviate a little bit from the question, if for instance we look at the year 1900, we can say that 4 can go into 19 4 times. That leaves us with 16, or with 3. Take it over there. 4 can go into 30 a total of 7 times. That's 28. Leaves us with another 2. And 4 can go into 25 times, which gives us 475. So the year 1900 was divisible by 4. It is also divisible by 100, because 100 can go into the 19 times. So now, is it a leap year or is it a leap year at all? So what we need to do is to take 1900, the year 1900, and divide that by 400. So now we say that 400 can go into 1900 how many times? And then you'll find that it cannot go into the specific amount of times. And that then excludes the year 1900 from being a leap year, because 400 cannot go into there exactly. Then we can just take a look at the year 2018 as well. 4 can go into 25 times, then 4 can go into 10 times, take the 1 over, we get 18. 4 cannot go into 18, so the year 2018 wasn't a leap year either. Then the next one, how many years ago was the year 570 BC? Now remember, we are in 2020 as this video is made, whichever year you watch this video in, obviously. But in this case, we are looking at the year 2020, and 570 BC was 570 years before 0. So how that works, according to the calendars that we use, there was a period that we call the birth of Christ, which is then the year 0. Now, it's not technically correct, according to the Bible and according to archaeological evidence and a lot of scriptures. It's not necessarily the year 0, but let's forget about the Christian connotation here. Let's forget about the religious connotation. We look at this from a practical perspective. Calendars, scientific, there needs to be a year 0. And that year 0 then obviously carried on. Then we've got 1 year after, then we've got 2 years after, and eventually we are where we are now in the year 2020 years later. And then we need to also remember that before that time there was a period as well. So that then is called before Christ, and this is called after Christ, or AD. That's the Latin for Anno Domini, which is after Christ. But then going back 570 years, according to this question, we just need to add that to 2020, where we are right now, to know how many years ago was the year 570. Because remember, it started with 1 year before Christ, then 2 years before Christ, then 3, then 4, then 5, all the way up. But ultimately, according to this question, there was a period of 570 years before the point 0. And then another 2020 until where we are right now. So we just simply add those two. 570 plus 2020, so that's 0, 2 plus 7 is 9, 0 plus 5 is 5, and 2. So that gives us 2,590 years ago. Then the next question, how many centuries in 1700 A? Now that A is again something that you will find sometimes. It is also a Latin word, and it just indicates years, anno or annum. You'll sometimes find interest rates in banking transactions are given as per annum. It's just a Latin word that says per year or year. So that A stands for years. So how many centuries in 1,700 years? You can just cross out those 2 zeros, because a century is 100 years. So it's a total of 17 centuries. That's it. Remember, 1 century is 100 years. So how many 100 years are you looking at? Then you know how many centuries you need to calculate. How many years are in 270 decades? Now, a decade is a period of 10 years. That's also something you need to remember. You need to know that. 1 decade is 10 years. So 270 decades is 270 times by 10. So that gives us 2,700 years, which will make up a period of 270 decades. And then the last one, we've already taken a look at leap years, but just to answer this question from a different perspective, how many days are in a leap year? It is 366. Now the reason for that, just in case you didn't know, when the Earth rotates around the Sun, we consider it to be 1 year, which is a period of 365 days. So we are assuming the Earth goes around the Sun in 365 days flat, but it doesn't. It actually goes around the Sun in a little bit more than 365 days. Now, every 4 years, what we do is we add to February to just give us 360 days in a leap year. And that basically just means that over a period of a long time, by missing that little bit, every year going around the Sun won't catch up with us where, for instance, we would have summer in the middle of July, say a couple of 100 years from now. So just to keep up with the seasons and keep up with the rotation of the Earth around the Sun with that little bit of difference between the exact amount of days, every 4 years we just add a little bit. And then it still keeps us our calendar at least properly aligned with the seasons and everything else that goes with it. So that's why a leap year has an extra day. And that gives us 366 days in a leap year.